Hello and welcome to part 8 of my time in the CSC with Britain's most dangerous prisoners. And today I'm going to talk about a guy called John Durrant. Most people have probably never heard of this guy. He killed himself whilst in the CSC unit in Whitemoor. He was 25 years old and he was one of the youngest people ever to be in the CSC unit. Second youngest to my knowledge. He was 20 years old. But John Durrant without doubt had some mental health issues. But I knew him quite well and he was a good friend of mine. I'm going to give a brief background to his situation. So John was from quite a middle-class family in Surrey, but moved to Lincolnshire as a child. He was adopted by a middle-class family. So I don't think he ever really knew his real parents. But when he was around 16, he decided he was going to become a serial killer. He was a bit obsessed with heavy metal and satanic stuff and all kinds of stuff like that. So he goes out and stabs some guy at random. And the guy survives, but he got jailed for attempt murder. But whilst on remand, he was on remand at Glenparva. He takes his cellmate hostage and slices his face open and stuff like that. And whilst he's in the healthcare to be assessed, they're looking at sending him to Rampton or somewhere like that. So whilst he's in the healthcare, this is before he's been sentenced for the attempt murder, he picks up there's a guy there on crutches. So he takes now he's in jail and he's failed at becoming a serial killer. He decides he's going to become the new Charlie Bronson. So he picks up a crutch off a guy on crutches and beats an officer around the head with it and fractures his skull. So eventually he gets 3 life sentences and he's Cat A now and he goes to Aylesbury. And I first meet him before he was in the CSC in summer of 2000. I think Aylesbury got rid of all its Cat A's. I think all the Cat A's had to go. They stopped taking Cat A's. So John came to Woodhill and then Doncaster and he was on the YP wing. And I met him in the SEG. And he came on the SEG, he was an E list, he was Cat A and he was on a 5-officer unlock. So we were all like, whoa, who's this guy and all that. So it turns out what he'd done, he tried making a bomb. And there's a thing you do in prison, especially in young offenders, where you get an aerial, you snap the aerial and you take the brown bits off safety matches and a couple of boxes, you ground them up and you stuff the aerial so it's packed and then you twist the ends so that it's all airtight. And this is traditionally done on New Year's Eve in young offenders. Then you wrap it in toilet roll and set it on fire and it makes a real big loud bang with just like a celebratory firework for New Year's Eve. So John decides to, if you could do this on a larger scale, then it would pretty much be an explosive. So he used to buy matches every week and over a period of months, he had instead of a aerial, he had a tobacco tin, the old metal tobacco tin, and he was decided to fill up the tobacco tin to make a bomb, tie it up, and he said he was going to pack it and encase it into whiteners. Whiteners are flammable when they aerated. And so, like, if you light a lighter and you pour whitener onto it, it'll just go boom. And he was planning to make some kind of explosive device, but they found it. And that's why he went from Doncaster to Woodhill, which is where I met him. So after that, he goes to Full Sutton, and he's 18 and he's in Full Sutton, which is quite rare. But he was in Full Sutton for around a year or something like that. But he's teamed up with Matthew Williams. Matthew Williams is from Birkenhead. He's a very well-known person in dispersal at the time. And he's a very dangerous person. I don't know him. I've never met him. But a lot of people say he's not dangerous with a knife or with his fists or anything like that. He's dangerous with his mind. He's a bit of a political radical, but he's just very intelligent. So John teamed up with him. John's quite an intelligent, and he weren't into politics at the time, but I'll come to that when I get to it. So John's teamed up with Matthew Williams to plot some escape, and they've made a gun out of matches, like a fake gun, sanded it down so it's all smooth, painted it black, varnished it, glossed it so apparently it's looked quite genuine. But obviously Matthew Williams was Cat A, John Durrant was both Cat A, so you get a cell search every month, so they've had to hide it somewhere, which is which is not in their cell. So I can't remember where it was, but they found it somewhere. I think John's thrown it out the window when they've come for a cell search or something like that. But they found it, and they've locked the jail down for a week. They've searched everywhere, and during the search, they found knives and everything. Nothing to do with them, but a lot of people in dispersal have knives stashed just in case it ever goes off, and they've got shanks and stuff which are ready at hand on various places. So they've been dragged into all that kind of stuff. Matthew Williams has been shipped out, and John Durrant's gone to Long Lartin, and he's only in Long Lartin for about 6 weeks, where him and a guy called Justin Blinston have decided to take some lad hostage, a lad called Muhammad Ali, which is apparently, John told me that he was in for rape and murder of a woman. But I don't know. Try Googling Muhammad Ali and see how many different stories you get of various different people. But they've taken him hostage. I found a newspaper report that said they took him hostage for 7 hours, and that staff had to rescue the hostage with stun grenades and stuff like that. But during the time, they cut his face open, and they've written slogans about Satanism and stuff like that, and they've burnt the soles of his feet and stuff like that, and they played heavy metal out and stuff like that, and apparently he said this was to draw attention to his mental health issues. So this was 2002. So John's come to the CSC Unit. I was come to Woodhill, which is where I met him again. And whilst we were there, John, this was the whole background to like late 2002, early 2003. The whole Iraq war was about to kick off, and John and I we were both like real left wingers at the time. We teamed up and we went on various rampages, refusing to come off the yard, and we were very politically active at the time. We were both putting in various county court claims, putting in complaints and everything, and we were reading a lot. Every Socialist Weekly, Direct Action, monthly magazine, every rag we were getting, we were like, as soon as he'd read, let me read it. And we were both really young and enthusiastic about, you know, the revolution and stuff like that. We're both listening to the same music and stuff like that. We both love politically active bands like System of a Down and stuff like that. And we'd go on various mad campaigns together. But the thing is with John, when he was around sensible people, later on, so when we progressed to B-Wing, and there was people like me and Tony McCulloch, Mervyn Plummer and stuff like that, sensible, switched on people, he'd stop all his antics, his self-harming and stuff like that. But when he was with people who were just kind of bit of a head case, like Glenn Wright and Chris Brasher, who were always self-harming, attention seekers, the needy people and all that kind of stuff, it's like he was trying to outdo him, and he was always seek to impress by just doing bizarre stuff with his self-harming and stuff like that, and just talking madness. But when he was with sensible people, he knew we weren't impressed by all that, so he'd be all right, and we actually kind of liked him and all that, because he was quite an intelligent guy. But when he was with, you know, your head cases and stuff like that, he would just turn on his madness. And I think John went to Rampton for a bit, roundabout. He went missing for about 2004, 2005, and he's come back to Woodhill. But by now, I remember he's come straight onto B-Wing, so we're all in the same group. And I've abandoned all this left-wing stuff. For me, it was just a little phase I was going through, part of growing up and part of the being anti-establishment, part of being against the system and all that. It just kind of come naturally to me and all that. But he was still into it, and he was kind of disappointed and all that I was just weren't interested anymore. But we were still kind of friends. But he progressed to Whitemore CSC before us, and he was in Whitemore CSC in 2007. And that was where he took his own life in July 2007. And he was on a suicide watch, an hourly watch at the time. So a lot of people don't believe he genuinely intended to take his own life. He was self-harming quite a lot at the time. And the people that were in Whitemore at the time, there was only Clem McNally who was the only sensible one. He was next door to him. But the other people you had there, like, you know, they were just other needy, you know, people with various mental health issues and stuff like that. So he hung himself from his picture board, which is quite unusual. It's not from a great height. So we all concluded really that he must have been doing it because he was on an hourly watch. Like he knew he would have been found within a short period of time. And he somehow slipped or we just didn't check him or something like that. He was just left there for quite a while. But I was in Woodhill at the time. Another strange thing about this was I went to Whitemore in September 2007, and I actually went in a cell after him. And even though I'm a very sceptical person, I don't believe in ghosts or paranormal and supernatural stuff and stuff like that. But you cannot help but think, one of your friends has committed suicide and you go in that cell after him 2 months after he's committed suicide. When you're going to bed at night, you cannot help but think about that person all the time, thinking. So around about September, October, what happens in Whitemore, the heating comes on at night time only, and it's not on all day. But when the heating comes on, you hear the boiler generator warming up, and the pipes make like a rattling and tapping noise. So every time I'm going to bed, I'm hearing all these tapping noises all the time. And it's like, so John's going around my head and I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? It started to challenge my belief. And then one day, it must have been about October, I've been in that cell for about a month. It's about midnight, and Clem McNally's still in the cell next door to me, and generally felt like someone had just grabbed hold of my bed and just shook it like that. And I'm there heart racing, like, what the hell was that? And this is the biggest challenge to my belief. But it was too late. I didn't want to shout anyone out the window because it was like midnight. I didn't. People were in bed, and I'm thinking, like, what the hell was I just dreaming that? I don't think I was. Anyway, I just kind of just fell back asleep. But then the next morning, I put the local news on in East Anglia. It was all over the news about an earthquake that had felt, and so I knew that's what it was with the bed shaking episode and stuff like that. But it was a bizarre experience to go in, in a cell soon after one of your friends has committed suicide in that cell. But to my knowledge, he was the first and maybe the only person to commit suicide in the CSC, and he was only 25 years old. And I'm pretty sure, John would have sorted himself out. Many people who I have spoken about or I was in the units with at this time, some of them are still stuck in the units, 20 years later. Some of them, managed to buck up their ideas and progress on. And I've got out. So we don't know really how John would have fared, but he's quite an unknown person. So nearly 20 years since he took his own life. And that concludes this story.